Welcome to the 6th episode of this Python tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to be talking about conditional statements. So, if else statements, you might have heard of them, and all the properties that come with it, and how to use them and manage them, and all of that junk. And we're going to put them all in this video. And if else statements are called conditional statements because it's basically in English, if I'm saying it like this, I'd be like, if this satisfies this equation or this value, do this. If not, do something else. And that's what you use it. Probably this is 50% of my Python code that I use in my projects, if else statements, right? So let me give you an example. I'm going to type it out and then I'll explain it after. Right. And so we have it, we run it, x is greater than y. So this is basically saying x is this value integer, y this value. If x 10 is greater than y 5, print x is greater than y. Else print x is not greater than y. It's basically that's how they're saying it in English. And so it's if else, and you're to create it, you use these double dots. So which if this is true, double dot, anything below here is what happens when x is greater than y. And then we'll have an else on the same line as if, double dot, print this, right? And this is the basics of if else statements. And now there's something else called elif statements, right? You go elif. Elif is else if. So let's go instead of else, for else you don't put any value, like you don't put x is greater than y or anything like that. It's just else. That's the last thing that would happen, right? Else if is, or elif is the next thing that you want to put in a condition for, right? So you go elif x is less than y, right? You go print x is less than y, right? Because it's just another if statement, but if this one is wrong, it's gonna go to this one instead of just putting many ifs. And I'll explain if you put two ifs later, but and you go else, right? And so else is all right, if it's not greater than, and if it's not less than, it must be equal to, right? So we go print x is equal to y, right? So x is greater, so it'll be greater. Let's say x is 2, should be less than, right? Let's say it's 5. It's equal, right? So that's how else and elifs and all this stuff works. And the difference is from ifs and elif, right? What if I just want to put in another if statement? This is basically saying if this is not true with elifs, if this is not true, go to this one. Else, go to this one. If you use two ifs, it's basically saying if x is greater than y, do this. And if it's elif, it would not even go through these ones, right? It wouldn't go through it. It would stop there and it would go to this next line of code down here. But since if we're using two ifs, it would read this as a whole nother condition, right? So it would go if x is greater than y. If it is true, it would still go to this one. And then this else is now connected to this if, right? So if is kind of like the start of everything, and you could use two. So this, they're looking at both of them and else is at the end. It's a little confusing, but let me explain something a little more in detail. Uh, shoot. So if I'm saying it in Python, if I'm Python, I'm explaining it. If x is greater than y, is x greater than y? It is. So it will do this, and it would stop there. It would not look at this one or this one, right? But if it's if, and let's say like we have x is greater than or equal to y, and elif x equals y, right? So these both satisfy the equation. And for equals, you want to put two equals for if statements. You don't do if x equals y if x is equal to y. That's just how it works for if statements, right? And so if x is greater than, we'll change it. If x is y. So now we have two if statements. and an if statement and an elif statement. The if statement looks at it. All right, x is greater than y. Elif, it doesn't even look at it if this is true, right? So it will print it. X is greater than y. But if we have two ifs, it will look at both of them, and both of them are true. So x is y and x is greater than y. Oh, it's because we don't have it at 5. So see, it prints both of them. But if it's elif, it only prints one, right? And that's basically the difference from if and elif. Else if is what other programming languages use, but elif is what Python uses. And that's basically it with conditional statements. And you could use them for strings and everything like that. So we could go value equals hello. If value is equal to goodbye, print see ya. Else you go elif value is equal to hello, print hello, right? And so it's equal to hello, so hello. And capitals matter. So if it's dot or if it's lowercase h, nothing will print. See, just like that. And you could use this for anything we've learned. So we could go, let's say we have a list, right? So we go list equals 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If, and we could have like true, negative 9.5, negative 9.2, and false, right? And so we have a bunch of different stuff. And so we could have if list of like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is equal to true. Print, yes, right? You could use anything, yes. You could use the length. I remember I was talking about length. So if the length of list is equal to, what's the length? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So if it equals to 8, print list is 8, right? Boom, list is 8. And then you could also, if list is 8, and in the function you want to do, you go list dot pop the 7th term, the last one, right? Else print nothing happened, right? So, and then at the end, let's just print list. So we'll have a list. If the length is equal to 8, pop the last index. Let's see, pops the last index. But let's say we have another one. We could say goodbye. Nothing will happen. So if equals 8, else nothing happens, right? And it didn't delete goodbye. It didn't delete the 7th index. And yeah, that's how you use if statements. And all it is just conditions. If this is equal to this, do this, right? You could mess around with it even more. If list of 8, the length is equal to the list, let's take this out, is equal to the list of the 0th index, 0, 1, 2, 3. So of the third index, pop the 7th thing, right? So if the number 8, right, the length is 8, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, but it's 8 because we start at 1. So if 8 is equal to a list of 3, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, excuse me, is equal to the integer 8, they equal each other, pop the 7th, and it'll be true. It pops it, right? So you could mess around with it as much as possible. If this value equals this variable, do this. If this variable equals this other variable, add another, make a new variable, right? It could do so many different things. That's why I use if else statements with so much of my code, right? It's basically everything you want to do in your code, right? And so let's make a little like project. We could be input user equals input hello, and then it could be if input user is equal to I have no idea. It's equal to goodbye, print, right? That's what you could do. And so you could go like this. Remember, it gets put into a string. And let's say I want to put goodbye, but only with a lowercase g, right? Nothing happens. But let's say I want to do it with an uppercase g. If it equals this, goodbye. And, oh, I didn't even, sorry, goodbye. Enter, prints it, all right, fine, goodbye. And That's it. And if you, for example, if you don't want to worry about uppercase and lowercase, what I would do is I could go dot lower. So whatever input I put, it'll put everything in lowercase. So we'll put goodbye. So we could go like this. G-O-D or G-O-O-D B-Y lowercase c, right? It's all mixed up and jumbled, but puts everything lowercase. So you wouldn't have to worry about that if you're dealing with user inputs in uppercase and lowercase. Go equals goodbye. All right, fine, goodbye. And there's one more thing I want to talk about, and it is and. And so this is basically saying and or. And so it's basically as it says, if this is true and this is true, do this. Or if this is true or this is true, do this, right? So you could go x equals 10, y equals 9. And you could use or statements. So if x is greater than 2 and y is less than 100, print condition satisfied. So it's doing the same stuff. I can't spell satisfied. So if this is true and this is true, then do this, right? Condition satisfied. Or you could use or statements. So if one of the two is true, right? So let's say y is less than 8, right? So that's not true because 9 is greater than 8. So this is false, but this is true. It'll still be satisfied. But if we used and, it would not satisfy. So that's how you use and or. And everything has to be true, or just one has to be true. You could use multiple. You could use and x is equal to 10 and y is equal to 9. Oh, right. All of these are true. Yeah. X is, oh, this is not true. That's why. X is less than 10. It's condition satisfied. So you could use as many as you want, as little as you want. You could, still add else. Print, right. I don't know. Yeah. And so there we go. 100. Right, because this is not true and this is not true anymore. Yeah, that's basically how you could use if and else statements to your advantage and how you could implement them into your code. And yeah, that's basically it for this episode. As we go on with more projects, you'll see how if else elif statements work. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.